The most powerful ring in history isn't fictional, it belongs to the Pope. Weighing approximately 35 grams of solid gold and featuring intricate engravings of St. Peter casting his net, the Fisherman's ring has authenticated papal authority for over 750 years. Unlike ordinary jewelry, this ring carries such significance that touching it grants religious indulgences. 300 days for kissing the papal ring, compared to 100 for a cardinal's. Each pope receives a unique ring designed specifically for his papacy, bearing his chosen papal name in Latin around the bezel. Pope Francis broke with tradition by selecting a gold-plated silver ring rather than solid gold, signaling his commitment to humility and simplicity. The ring's creation occurs during the brief period between papal election and inauguration, requiring master jewelers to work with extraordinary speed and precision to deliver this symbol of apostolic power. When examining a papal ring under magnification, master jewelers have discovered intricate details invisible to the naked eye, microscopic prayers engraved inside the band, hidden compartments containing sacred relics, and goldsmithing techniques dating back to medieval craftsmanship. These rings aren't merely symbols, they're masterpieces of historical artistry, bearing witness to centuries of religious tradition. The Anulus Piscatoris, evolution of the Fisherman's ring. The story of the Fisherman's ring begins with a letter. In 1265, Pope Clement IV wrote to his nephew, using his personal papal seal, the earliest documented reference to what would become one of the most recognized symbols of papal authority. This initial function distinguished the Anulus Piscatoris from the leaden papal bulls used for more formal documents, establishing its original purpose as authenticating the pontiff's private correspondence. The distinction reveals how the ring began as a practical tool before evolving into a profound symbol of ecclesiastical power. By the 15th century, the ring's function expanded significantly. Moving beyond private letters, it now sealed papal briefs, less formal official documents requiring papal authentication. This development mirrored similar evolutions in royal signet rings across Europe, though the Fisherman's ring carried unique theological significance. Like a time capsule preserving each era's priorities, the ring adapted to the growing administrative complexities of the medieval papacy until 1842, when technological advancements led to its replacement by an ink stamp bearing the ring's design. The iconography on these rings captures the theological emphases of different periods. Early versions depicted St. Peter simply casting nets from a boat, directly referencing his fisherman origins before becoming Christ's disciple. This imagery symbolized the Church's evangelical mission to gather souls. Over time, designs evolved considerably. Later rings portrayed St. Peter holding heaven's keys, emphasizing the authority Christ conferred upon him and reinforcing the Pope's position as Peter's successor. The ring's materials reflect changing papal values through centuries. Traditionally forged from gold, these rings contrasted with the iron rings worn by Roman senators, symbolizing the precious nature of the papal office. However, contemporary times have witnessed departures from tradition. Pope Francis chose a gold-plated silver ring rather than solid gold, reflecting his emphasis on humility. This material choice demonstrates how established traditions accommodate personal expression while maintaining historical continuity. Physical dimensions have fluctuated dramatically throughout history. 16th century papal rings often exceeded 3 centimeters in diameter, nearly twice the size of contemporary noble signet rings, serving as ostentatious symbols of papal grandeur during the Renaissance. These impressive proportions gradually yielded to more modest designs, with modern rings typically measuring between 2 and 2.3 centimeters. This reduction parallels broader shifts in the Church's self-presentation toward more restrained demonstrations of authority. The 17th century brought standardization, with rings adopting a consistent oval form featuring Saint Peter fishing, surrounded by the reigning pontiff's Latin name. This created visual continuity while allowing each ring to remain uniquely identified with its bearer. The oval bezel became the canonical representation of papal authority, a design element remarkably stable despite centuries of artistic change. After 1842, the Fisherman's ring completed its transformation from functional signet to ceremonial symbol. Despite this functional obsolescence, the tradition of destroying the ring upon a pope's death continues, a practice originating from practical anti-forgery measures now serving as a powerful ritual symbolizing papal transition. From Clement IV's simple seal to Renaissance elaborations, from document authentication to ceremonial symbolism, the Fisherman's ring embodies ecclesiastical transformation. Like layers in an archaeological dig, each variation in design and usage reveals specific theological priorities and cultural contexts. This physical timeline of papal authority mirrors the Church's journey from medieval institution to modern global religion, with each ring bearing witness to the evolving nature of religious leadership through turbulent centuries. Craftsmanship and creation, the artisans behind papal rings. Behind every papal ring stands a shadowy network of master craftsmen whose names history has largely forgotten. The Vatican's private archives reveal an elaborate ecosystem of specialized artisans, metallurgists, gemologists, and engravers who collaborated under extraordinary circumstances to create these powerful symbols of papal authority. These commission records document transactions that showcase the convergence of technical expertise across multiple artistic disciplines, preserving evidence of craftsmen whose specialized knowledge might otherwise have disappeared entirely from historical record. When a new pope is elected, an almost impossible countdown begins. Master jewelers rush to their workshops, hands steady despite the pressure. One can imagine an aging craftsman hunched over his bench, squinting through jeweler's loops as Vatican officials pace nearby. The interregnum period imposes tremendous pressure on these chosen artisans who must create an exquisitely detailed signet ring before the inauguration ceremony. Each hammer strike, each careful cut must be perfect. There are no second chances when crafting for the pontiff. These papal jewelers navigate a delicate balance between ancient traditions and contemporary expectations. Each ring honors historical precedent while reflecting the individual theological emphasis of the incoming pope. The artisan essentially translates abstract theological concepts into metallurgical form. First, selecting materials that reflect papal character. Then, establishing proper proportions through careful measurement. Finally, executing intricate engravings that will transfer cleanly to wax. The creation process begins with material selection. Traditional rings utilized 18 to 24 karat gold, reflecting the papal office's splendor. Pope Francis's ring represents a significant departure. Silver gilt, containing approximately 30 grams of silver, covered with just 5 to 7 microns of gold plating. This choice symbolizes humility and simplicity, aligning with his emphasis on the Church's mission to the poor. The detailed engraving work demands extraordinary patience. Master artisans require between 40 to 60 hours to complete the intricate St. Peter fishing scene, working at microscopic scale with engraving depths of 300 to 500 micrometers. Pope Francis's ring featured an image based on a 1960s creation by Italian artist Enrico Manfrini, originally prepared for but never used by Pope Paul VI. Historical papal rings show fascinating variations in stone selection, each carrying specific theological symbolism. Some featured sapphires representing heaven, others incorporated rubies symbolizing Christ's blood. The specific cut patterns often related to theological concepts, with facet arrangements sometimes mirroring important numerical symbolism in Catholic tradition. The Clerici family of Rome maintained a near monopoly on papal ring creation from 1775 to 1939. Their workshop functioned as both business and school, with techniques passed from master to apprentice through generations. Their dominance established consistent standards that influenced papal ring design long after their workshop closed. Modern papal rings represent a synthesis of technology and tradition. Creation begins with computer-aided design for initial modeling, ensuring precise dimensions. Yet these digital models still undergo traditional hand-finishing techniques performed by experienced craftsmen who add subtle details impossible to achieve mechanically. Where once a master might spend weeks painstakingly carving wax models, now digital precision streamlines early stages, though the final human touch remains irreplaceable. This unique artistic ecosystem dedicated to maintaining centuries-old tradition involves collaboration between Vatican officials, Italian jewelry houses, and specialized ecclesiastical metalsmiths. This network preserves techniques that would otherwise disappear in our mass production era, demonstrating how traditional craftsmanship remains relevant when protecting significant cultural heritage. Beyond the Fisherman's Ring, comparative analysis of papal jewelry. The opulence of papal coronation rings stands in stark contrast to the relatively modest Fisherman's Ring, revealing a sophisticated hierarchy of ecclesiastical adornment. While most attention fixates on the signet ring that popes have worn for centuries, an entire cosmos of papal jewelry exists beyond this singular piece. The coronation ring, once the pinnacle of papal luxury, exemplified this magnificent tradition until its discontinuation in 1963. Pope Leo XIII's 1878 coronation ring epitomizes the extraordinary opulence of these ceremonial pieces. Like a theatrical prop designed to convey authority across vast basilica spaces, this magnificent creation featured a central diamond surrounded by brilliant stones. These oversized rings were designed to fit over the Pope's gloved hand during the crowning ceremony, their dimensions ensuring visibility to all witnesses of this momentous occasion. The Renaissance and Baroque periods saw particularly elaborate coronation rings, with designs incorporating precious stones and intricate metalwork, reflecting the artistic movements of their eras. These pieces functioned as wearable manifestations of papal authority, connecting the spiritual office to temporal power through tangible luxury. The sheer scale of these rings, far larger than comfortable for daily wear, emphasized their ceremonial rather than practical function. Archaeological discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of early papal ring traditions. Contrary to popular assumptions, the earliest papal rings bore little resemblance to the familiar fisherman's ring design that later became standardized. Instead, these ancient adornments featured distinctly different early Christian symbolism. The Chi-Rho monogram, representations of the Good Shepherd, and the Alpha-Omega motif. These findings suggest that papal ring iconography underwent significant evolution before settling on the fishing scene that eventually became canonical. This diversity of early designs raises fascinating questions about authenticity and official designation. Museums worldwide house contradictory examples labeled as papal rings with dramatically different designs and provenances. The criteria for what constitutes an official papal ring versus ecclesiastical jewelry, more broadly, remains contested among historians and religious scholars. From these ancient beginnings evolved a rich tapestry of papal adornments, serving distinct purposes across the centuries. Material analysis reveals how papal rings incorporated diverse precious materials, each with symbolic significance. Gleaming sapphires embodying heaven's azure vastness, fiery rubies representing Christ's sacrifice, and lustrous gold signifying divine light and eternity. The tradition of coronation rings ended with Pope Paul VI in 1963, who simplified numerous papal ceremonies in alignment with broader reforms. This liturgical streamlining eliminated the elaborate coronation ceremony entirely, replacing it with a more modest inauguration ritual. This shift transformed papal jewelry traditions, elevating the fisherman's ring to greater prominence. Beyond official ceremonial pieces, papal history reveals a tradition of personal devotional rings, offering intimate glimpses into individual spirituality. Pope Pius XII favoured minimalist designs, while Pope John XXIII chose rings featuring the patron saints of his hometown. These personal choices represented individual piety rather than institutional authority. The commemorative ring tradition illuminates another dimension of papal jewelry. A noteworthy example is the pastoral ring presented by Pope Paul VI to bishops participating in Vatican II, a gold ring featuring Saints Peter and Paul alongside Jesus, distributed to council participants at the conclusion of the historic gathering. The full spectrum of papal rings constitutes a comprehensive visual theology, with different categories communicating distinct aspects of papal identity and authority. The fisherman's ring emphasized apostolic succession. Coronation rings projected temporal power. Personal devotional rings expressed individual spirituality. Together they formed a sophisticated system through which popes communicated complex religious messages through the language of precious metals and gemstones. Conclusion. Throughout history, the fisherman's ring has transcended its utilitarian origins to become a potent symbol of papal authority derived from St. Peter. Pope Francis's choice of gold-plated silver made a profound theological statement within this tradition. These rings connect contemporary Catholicism to its apostolic roots, making visible the concept of succession. Within this symbolic ecosystem, material choices communicate theological positions. Francis's simpler ring reinforced his emphasis on serving the marginalized and embodying humility. As we contemplate this ancient tradition, consider how our own material choices reflect our values, just as this small object bridges centuries of faith and leadership. If you've been captivated by these jeweled chronicles of power and tradition, subscribe for more stories of remarkable jewels that have shaped our shared past.